The number one team in the country almost lost yesterday. Notre Dame may be back after just 1 week, and Boston College could be a legitimate contender in the ACC. But first, we have some Friday games to talk about. So UNLV Kansas. This was on my list of the most important G5 games, and we have two G5 games to talk about, and the race is thinning now. I think we have a established top 3, top 4, top 5. UNLV is certainly one of them. They would be the number one team in the Big 12 right now, considering they have 2 Big 12 road wins. And I would right now, if the season ends, it's UNLV. They're 100% ahead of the race. It's just, are they going to be able to get past Boise and win the Mountain West? If they do, I don't think there's any reason unless they... No, there would be no reason. And UNLV ends up winning the Mountain West, they will be the G5 representation in the playoffs unless Memphis ends up going like undefeated or something. But is that going to happen? I don't see that happening. And for Kansas, rough. Rough start considering they were a top 5 projected team in the Big 12. They were a dark horse in the Big 12. Jalen Daniels has been awful to start the year. Devin Neal's doing his thing still. But Jalen Daniels has, I think, like 5 turnovers already in 3 games, maybe more. Actually, I think it's 7. I think he has 7 turnovers in the first 3 games of the season, and the whole question was he's healthy, and he's just not playing well at all, and he's healthy. And Kansas, I had them projected. I had them as a 10-2 win or 10-2 team going into the year, and now they're 1-2. So the highest ranked matchup of the week was on a Friday game between Arizona and Kansas State. That's not how it should be, but it was. Arizona's bad. They're bad. I mean, they struggled against NAU last week. They only won by 12, and then this week they got blown up by 24. They're not deserving in their 20 ranking. I don't think they ever will, and they're going to be unranked probably for the rest of the year, I'd assume. But after last year was returning talent, and returning star talent, we'll say, because they did lose a lot. Maybe a little more expectations, but whatever. For K-State, though, Avery Johnson, the one, I don't want to say knock, we'll go knock. He wasn't running the ball. He's a running quarterback, and he ran 11 times or something like that over the first 2 games. 17 carries, 110. That is a Kansas State team or him playing like that, it can take this Kansas State team to the Big 12 championship, to the playoffs. After today, they'll probably end up being the favorite odds-wise. I'd assume so. Now, this was the only ranked game of yesterday, and that's a surprising scoreline, honestly. Boston College comes in ranked mainly because of their Florida State win, and Florida State is not good. And they come to Mizzou, who had not let up a single point all year, was playing amazing, an SEC team. And, man, they competed. They were up at No, they weren't up at halftime. They were up very close to halftime. I know they were up 14-6. And then Mizzou turns it on. I was thinking, like, I was questioning a lot, just seeing the scoreline, and I won't go into those questions, but BC, impressive. They've been super impressive so far, and there's 2 tiers of ACC contenders. I would only put 4 right now, ACC contenders. Clemson and Miami in 1, and then down in the second is Louisville, who we probably won't talk about for a while until they play Clemson or Miami, and Boston College. Going into a top 10 SEC school and winning is impressive. And Missouri, making a comeback, I don't see anything wrong. I know they came in as 17-point favorites. I see nothing wrong with Missouri right now. I know this was their first true test, and we will see them throughout the year, but I don't think this is like a bad look on Missouri at all. I don't want to say if anything is like a great look, but it's not a bad look on Missouri. Now, a game I was at, and that will be talked about in a video tomorrow, and that is Alabama-Wisconsin. Seeing Alabama's offense in person, and I've talked about it a couple of times, that they can score in an instant. I can't snap, but you get the point. They can score in an instant, and they can really score in an instant. What did they have? They had a 50-yard touchdown. They had 2 fumble recoveries in the Wisconsin 25, which led to touchdowns. They had a 35-yard touchdown run. They had a drive. The last drive of the first half, 50-yard pass to Ryan Williams, And then, no, I don't think it was 50. It must have been 40. I don't know. It's something like that. And then 40-yard TD pass. They can score in an instant. And this is not against USF. This is not against Western Kentucky. This is at a Big Ten team. They went to Camp Randall in a super hype game for Wisconsin and blew them out and they went and stomped on their neck for 3.5 quarters. And that's what Alabama can do. It's the same Alabama. It's just the same Alabama. And now Georgia, who we'll talk about later, struggled. And Alabama is hosting Georgia this week or next week. Yeah, we'll call it this week. That game is going to be amazing. But if it's week 3 Alabama versus week 3 Georgia, give me Alabama. Georgia almost lost to Kentucky. That's just what happened. And Georgia, week 1, blows out Clemson. And then week 3, not blows out. What am I saying? Has a 1-point game versus Kentucky, who got blown out, which is what I'm trying to say, by South Carolina last week. Now, maybe Kentucky was playing a little look ahead. Just that, fuck South Carolina, we're going right for Georgia. Maybe that makes a difference, but after the way Texas has been playing, Ohio State, I know they haven't played anybody. Alabama, Ole Miss. Am I forgetting anybody else? No. Those 4 teams have been playing. I don't want to count Ole Miss because they haven't played jack shit. But the way Alabama, Texas, Ohio State have been playing, neither has Ohio State, but still. I would put Georgia below all of them. And is this overreacting? Yeah. But maybe is it warranted? Yeah. So, the polls come out in an hour and a half. I'd be very interested to see if they drop Georgia to 2. And I think there's a real possibility they did because that offense was nothing. They had 1 touchdown. Defense played amazing, but they gave their offense. If you give Georgia's offense the ball at the 20-yard line, that should be a touchdown any day, and they didn't. And they let Kentucky's defense kind of clamp them. And again, we just mentioned in the last game, but they play Bama next week. This is probably the last time I'll mention Michigan's struggling offense because I have talked about it in 2 straight weeks, but we're going to do it for a 3rd time. Davis Warren was awful. 3 picks. Ball didn't touch the ground once, but 3 picks. Go to Orgy, who probably should have been the quarterback the entire time. But, they get out hot in the first half, and then 7 points in the second half, and then let Arkansas State, I guess a pity comeback. Arkansas State had a touchdown in the final, 2 seconds of the game. But I'm going to be honest. They already played Texas and lost. They have to go to Washington, who lost, and didn't look that great versus Washington State, but we're not going to be talking about them here. Oregon, they host Oregon. They host USC next week, and they still have to play Ohio State. So that could be 4 losses. Michigan has a very real chance to go 7-5. All right, so Oregon's offense is back. I think that's fair, very fair to say. Dylan Gabriel, Dylan Gabriel was never the problem. He has been putting up numbers. Except the problem was the offensive line, which I don't want to say magically fixed itself, but played a lot better. And the running game, which I can see here because it says Jordan James ran for 86 yards, but Oregon's rushing yards, 240. That is huge for Oregon, considering I don't think they've put up above 150 the entire year rushing. Honestly, that number could be a very high number for that too. It could be a lot worse for Oregon. And they finally did it. They finally established a run game, and this Oregon that we saw today is the Oregon, or yesterday, is the Oregon that I expect to see the rest of the year. It's the Oregon that was a 3rd or 4th in odds to win the championship. The Oregon that was heavily picked by a lot of experts to win the national championship. That's the Oregon we saw yesterday. All right, so this ended up. No, we'll talk about the game in a week soon, but this was a very good game. South Carolina came out hot, super hot, 17-0 lead. And LSU, huge credit to LSU. We said this was a must-win. It was. And they end up going to Columbia and with game day, with all the hype, going down 17-0. And, I know Lenore Sellis got hurt. I know. They end up coming in and making that comeback. And I mean, just a lot of credit to LSU. A lot of credit. They still have a rough road ahead, though. So you can't start like that ever again, or in like any of your SEC school or SEC games, because you have Alabama, you have Oklahoma, you have Ole Miss, you have one of the other big ones. I think maybe Mizzou. No, I forgot which one. Anyway, South Carolina, the injury sucks. You probably win that game. Rocket Sanders seems back to 2 years ago Arkansas form now. We're projected to be second to last, third to last in the SEC. It could still be that, unfortunately, just because of the schedule. But I'm gonna be honest, in any other conference, this is an 8-win, 9-win team. It's a really good South Carolina team, really young South Carolina team. It's just kind of unfortunate their schedule. Now this ended up being game of the week. I meant some of the catches. Oh, by the way, some of the sloppiest football ever. The whole special team situation where nobody picked up the punter, and then nobody picks up a blocker, which leads to a scoop and score. Wild game. The West Virginia catch, a one-handed catch, and then the 40-yard triple coverage. Whatever. Amazing game. Some weird football. Very weird game, too. And, all right, West Virginia, dark horse in the Big 12, went 9-4, returned a lot of talent. Bad start. Penn State, they played bad. They didn't play great against Albany either. They let up 300 yards passing. And then they blew a 10-point lead to Pitt in 4 minutes. And for Pitt, matching their win total last year already, they made a huge comeback for Cincinnati. I think that was like 17 points. Made a huge comeback here. Eli Holstein, transfers from Bama. He was a nobody at Bama at Pitt. He's a superstar. And had struggled with quarterback last year's time. It's an understatement. That's an understatement. They moved their quarterback to tight end. 2 years, they've sucked at quarterback. Since Kenny Pickett, I know that wasn't that long ago. Eli Holstein, you would assume, would be playing at least 4 years at Pitt, and he can, a 4-year starter at Pitt, he can just lead them for the next 4 years. He's the guy of the future, man. How about this comeback in the Big 12? I thought this game was done. I stopped watching at one point. And UCF makes this huge comeback. And, dark horse in the Big 12. That Big 12 race, again, that's another race that's thinning. I think we're down to 5. TCU, if they had won this game in dominant fashion, which it looked like they were, we could have had TCU in that Big 12 contender. Now we have Iowa State. UCF is firmly in there. Utah, Oklahoma State, Kansas State. Those are 5 Big 12 contenders. UCF, this is a statement win. I can't express that enough. I don't even know. Imagine UCF is the Big 12, winning the Big 12. It's a real possibility right now. How were these the same two teams? I don't get it. Notre Dame lost 13-14 last week, or 16-14, sorry, to NIU. And then they blow. I think they were mad. This scoreline is ridiculous. They're up 42-0 at half, and the game finishes at 66-7. Those are not the same two teams. And now it creates... Let's stop laughing for a second. Let's talk serious. Creates a very interesting narrative, because what the fuck is Notre Dame? Again, passing, the past 3 weeks, that did not solve. Riley Leonard has not been a great passer. I know the weapons aren't helping him that much. It's not good. Jeremiah Love, been the focal point of the offense, and Riley Leonard ran the shit out of the ball too. He had over 100 yards, and I think he had 3 touchdowns on the ground. They can run the ball, but if they can't, they're screwed. And they have no tracking attack. Screwed. And again, their defense, amazing. We don't have to talk about it. Their secondary being the best. But again, this Notre Dame team can win out. And an 11-1 Notre Dame team won't make the playoffs. The only question is if, let's just say they win out till USC, because they easily could. They have Georgia Tech and then they have Louisville. And I think they host Louisville and then they go to Georgia Tech. And those are really the two other spots on the schedule where there can be losses. But it's the USC game at USC. If they end up going 10-2 with a loss at USC and the NIU loss, that actually could not be enough. And the way this whole thing is made is that if Notre Dame is 10-2, usually they will make the playoffs. Like 9 out of 10 times in the 10-2 Notre Dame team will make the 12-team playoffs. Because of the NIU loss, they may have already screwed themselves. So they're playing no margin for error. And if they play like this, they will win out. And finally, after this week, I said it was Michigan. I was done talking about Michigan's offense because we just acknowledge its shit. Same thing with Florida State. This is the last time I'm talking about Florida State losing. Probably the last time I talk about Florida State unless they upset someone, because I think we have to acknowledge, I think everybody has acknowledged that this is just a shit team. So after they go on bye, and you expect with the talent that they have, the coaching staff that they have, that Florida State comes and they come out the gate hot and they beat Memphis. Nope, no, hot. It's not the offense. I meant the Mike Vrabel stats under Jordan Travis. I really don't want to acknowledge it, and I don't have to acknowledge a 3-9 record without Jordan Travis at Florida State. But maybe we have to fucking acknowledge it, because I don't want to talk bad about Mike Norvell. He was a contender for the Alabama job. I'm not sure, but I think there's a good chance that he was called before Kalen DeBoer was called. And Kalen DeBoer at Alabama has been incredible. Florida State right now is awful. I mean, they're just awful. It's not awful for a 10-win team anymore. It's just awful for an FBS team. They're 0-3. I don't expect this team to make a bowl. I don't expect them to turn it around. DJ Uiagalelei is terrible. He is just terrible. It's not terrible for a 5-star. It's not terrible for the DJ we saw in 2020. Yeah, 2020. It's just terrible for any quarterback. The offense is terrible for any offense. And it's no longer a discussion, is Florida State playing terrible for their expectations? It is the conversation of Florida State is just terrible. And in Memphis, good for Memphis. Good for Memphis. They kept $1.3 million to go and beat their former head coach. Isn't that the best feeling? I don't think Mike Norvell coached a single one of the people on the team, but still, feels good for the school. And them versus UNLV versus Boise State versus NIU versus I don't know if I want to put Tulane in that conversation, but we will versus Tulane. Those 5 teams for the Group of 5 race is gonna be very interesting. Memphis and UNLV especially have pushed their way through, going undefeated non-conference and against Power 5 school or Power 4 schools. So, I mean, yeah, it's a great win for Memphis. Florida State is just not a good team. It's unfortunate. That's not unfortunate. They talked so much shit last year. I don't know if this is karma, because I do feel bad for them after last year, but they talk about how they should be in 0-4, losing to Memphis. All right, well, thank you all for watching. Discord's in the description. See ya.